On this channel, I've talked a lot about the unfortunate circumstance when someone doesn't declutter during their lifetime, and unfortunately, after their passing, due to the tremendous stress and overwhelm and also just dealing with emotions related to grieving, a lot of that stuff just ends up getting thrown away. People might rent out a dumpster and just be tossing out sometimes decades worth of items in a very rapid amount of time without really knowing what's going into that dumpster. I actually just recently had the chance to experience it firsthand, unfortunately, and I can tell you it definitely heightened my motivation for the importance of decluttering and living a minimal life to prevent that from happening. Recently, my family and I had the chance to visit my 88-year-old grandfather in Arizona, and he has been living with dementia that has progressively gotten worse this year. And unfortunately, during our visit, although it was just intended to be more of a social visit and spending time with him kind of visit, we ended up actually needing to go through a lot of his stuff. I won't get into too many details, but he's been living in an assisted living facility, and due to some of his behaviors and also putting some staff members at risk, he did get kicked out. And we had to work really quickly to get him set up elsewhere at a facility that had more memory care and dementia support systems in place. And so with that, we had a lot of work to do. My dad certainly doing a lot of the heavy lifting because it is his dad, and also working with his brother. They've been working on these situations for a long time, but he had 3 storage units within his facility in addition to a 1-bedroom apartment, probably about 1,000 square feet. And the new place where he ended up moving to was basically like a college dorm room. Very small, 1-room twin bed with a attached bathroom. When all of us were there, in addition to spending time with my grandfather, we went through these 3 storage units, emptied everything out, and unfortunately, about 95% of everything was thrown away in a large dumpster that the assisted living facility had. And there was also a lot of other stuff that appears like someone else maybe had to do a similar type of clean out, and big furniture that was there. And it was just really sad to be a part of. Unfortunately, due to the volume of the stuff that he had, as well as the urgency of the situation to get him transferred to the new facility, we didn't really have the chance to give items the proper attention they deserve in terms of trying to find someone to purchase an item or donate an item. And while certain items certainly did appear like throwing them out was probably what would happen anyway, it was really tough to see certain belongings that meant something to him throughout his life, that things that he no longer is able to use, such as, for instance, his whole jewelry making kit. He used to make jewelry for art shows and did that for multiple decades. He hasn't touched any of that, in recent times, but his whole kit there, it was just thrown away. It was also challenging since we had to fly out and we just packed, carry-on bags. We really couldn't bring much home with us. The only thing I ended up bringing home was a big folder of some family history documents, since those are, I think more important than the stuff. But regardless, it was really sad, and all of it could have been avoided or prevented had more decluttering work gone into it ahead of time. Unfortunately, though, these 3 storage units that I've talked about where we emptied out was not the extent of it. Following our trip, my dad went back out there, and his brother also joined him. The 2 of them packed up my grandpa's essentials that he would need at his new facility, but the rest they packed up in garbage bags, and the assisted living facility was going to dispose of those for them. All of this stuff in here going to the landfill. I know I was stunned when I saw the volume of it. You don't think, oh yeah, that all would fit in a 1-bedroom apartment, but he really did have so many belongings. And although some work had gone into decluttering his house a little bit when he moved into this 1-bedroom space, there was still a lot there. So what's the point of sharing this story? I think, unfortunately, in life, we never know exactly when that point is that we will no longer be able to handle something ourselves or do something ourselves, or even when we will experience a major setback that makes everyday life and everyday tasks more challenging for ourselves. In the case of my grandpa, he seemed to be doing really well until February of this year, and he started to have a more rapid decline and have an increase in irrational, challenging behaviors. And unfortunately, he was no longer able to really be able to help go through the belongings. And because of waiting too long, it was too late, and the urgency of the situation meant we weren't able to make informed choices. This is just one example, but I know so many others may experience a similar shift where one day you're able to do these tasks that you've always done, or have more decision-making abilities, or more physical capabilities to help declutter and work through belongings. But then one day, we don't know when, that no longer will be the case. And so I can't stress enough how important it is to do it earlier so we don't regret these actions later. The longer we put off decluttering, or the amount we're able to declutter, is only going to increase the likelihood that a situation like this may happen to you or a loved one in the future, given the urgency and the struggle, especially after someone's passing, and if you're dealing with a whole household or decades of memories. And while this wasn't the case in our situation, these types of circumstances can also lead to a lot of conflict or drama in families, where there might be conflicting ideas about what to do with it, or conflicting balance of responsibility of which siblings or loved ones need to take on more of this responsibility. And certainly just witnessing all of this has only made me feel more passionate about the importance of decluttering and keeping things minimal, especially after I've seen how much stress my parents have both been under, given this circumstance, and also with my mom and supporting her aging parents as well. From this situation, I do think there are 4 key takeaways that anyone can apply, no matter how old you are or the amount of clutter you have. First of all, I think starting now is much better, so you have more time to work through things at a reasonable and sustainable pace. Number 2, I think it's also very important, if there is something you're holding on to that really should be just thrown away, just take care of it now, because it doesn't make a difference to the world whether you throw something away now or it gets thrown away in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It would be much better to let go of it sooner so you can live your life without being weighed down by as much trash. Prioritization matters. So even if you're not able to fully declutter your items, if you can get together the best, most personal, sentimental items that mean the most to you and have those clearly marked or organized separate from the rest, that will make it so much easier on others who are helping in the future to know what needs to be preserved and prioritized versus the other stuff that doesn't need to be cared for as closely. Finally, I would recommend that memories are prioritized in whatever way makes sense for you. Paper clutter, photo clutter, these types of records can also be really tedious. And one of the days while we were there were all these tubs of photo albums and memory books, and it was a very tedious day, but we did manage to flip through and pull and digitize essential photographs and mementos in that sense to help preserve family history and keep track of these. It would have been a lot easier if a system had been set up in place ahead of time, but we still managed to do this, even though it took many hours of an afternoon. I hope these action steps can apply to you and your family, but I also encourage you to have these tough conversations with loved ones who are getting older, or just in general as different life changes happen. It's so important to be proactive instead of reactive to prevent regrets and waste and just a really sad situation of leaving behind decades worth of memories. If you are looking for more decluttering content, I do have quite a few videos here on this channel you can check out. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.